Happiness is typically defined by asking people about whether they're happy and whether they're satisfied with their life. Sometimes it's called subjective well-being. And sometimes it's called life satisfaction, sometimes it's called happiness. And that's because all three of those aspects are in the items that constitute that question. And what the research on happiness tends to show is that a meaningful life and a connected life are critically important. If you have no money, if you're destitute, that makes you unhappy. If you're diseased, that makes you unhappy. But above those minimum requirements, having a meaningful life that also is connected to others turns out to be fairly critical. And when you think about it, at the moment of your death, it doesn't really matter how much material stuff you leave behind. When I was young, I was in a very bad automobile accident. And I had that moment where I thought about my life to that point. And I can tell you that all the achievements and all the material items meant absolutely nothing. The thing that I thought last about were the individuals who I loved, and that was a small number. And my only concern at that point was really just with them. And that's something I think most people, if not everyone, goes through at the end. And it's you know, in some ways it was a gift for me to realize that when I still had a lifetime to live. And I think if we can realize that, then that contributes to greater happiness as well. Human nature is defined variously by different authors and scientists, so it's worth trying to define what I mean by it. Some describe human nature or think what you mean by human nature as the genetics, as what's biologically determined. And that is not how I'm using the term. Human nature to me is what is our nature as humans? As simple as that. Donald Hebb, a psychologist in the middle of the 20th century at McGill University, asked whether nature or nurture, genes or environment, were more important to behavior, said that's a little bit like asking whether the length or the width of a rectangle contributes more to the area of the rectangle. It's both. So we are genetic machines, but those genes have been selected by environments, by cultures. They promote adaptive behavior in environments and in cultures. They're deeply interactive when it comes to mind and behavior with the environment and with culture. And so I think about human nature as what is the biological machinery we have, what can we do socially and culturally, and how do those combine to create the mind and behavior that we see in everyday life. I wrote the book for two reasons. And I wrote the book with Bill Patrick, who is a wonderful, wonderful friend and colleague now. And so I'll say we wrote the book for two reasons. One reason was because I think loneliness is badly misunderstood. And that's to the detriment of 60 million people in America. That's about 20% of individuals feel lonely at any one point in time. And that's a lot of people to have miserable for perhaps unnecessary reasons. And I thought the science was at a point where we could perhaps, with an intelligent book, help them. But there was a deeper reason, and that is that it's a book about social neuroscience. It's a book about who are we as humans. And I think the focus on the solitary individual and about us as cognitive machines, as solitary computers, is wrong. I mean, fundamentally, I think it's the wrong idea. We are not solitary computers. We are information processing devices, but we're much more like the internet in that the capacity comes from our ability to connect with other similar devices out there and to reconfigure. That's where the real power of computing is today, including human computing. But that's a very, very different depiction. And so I thought it was worth raising that point of discussion for a broad audience. And I hope the book does that.